Welcome back to the chat room, everybody. Today I am here with James Conlan. He is a professional narrator and voiceover coach. Thank you, James, for joining me today.
Well, you're welcome, Megan. Glad to be here.
So we are going to dive on in today, to discussing the whole wide world of voiceover acting and how you could possibly do this at home or even as a pastime, or how it could help you in, another career. So
Sure.
how long have you been doing, voiceover acting, and what led you to this career?
Well, that's a pretty good question because it goes way back. Most of my career has been in the field of advertising. And back in the 70s, I had a job with a small ad agency up in Michigan. And I was the chief copywriter and producer for that agency. And I wrote a lot of radio commercials. And some of them, it seemed like, you know what, I could do that part. So I decided to give it a try, see if I actually could do that. And as it turns out, this was mostly voice acting at the time for radio commercials.
Mhm.
Very popular, funny radio commercials used to be very popular. And I decided to participate myself, cast myself in some of these roles, and I enjoyed it. And it worked pretty well, so I continued to do it for about 10 years while I was still working for ad agencies, off and on. And when I got to Houston, I decided to actually go professional and get myself a talent agent. And is that in about 1987, I think. So my professional career dates from 1987.
That's quite a long time in the business.
Mm.
A true professional. So then what would you say makes a good, successful voiceover artist in your opinion?
Well, I think there are several components to that, and what I try to press upon my the people I coach is that it takes more than a good voice. In fact, I have coached a lot of people, and I've cast a lot of people in radio spots in particular, not because they had a great voice, but because they had a great personality. And they knew how to combine their voice and their personality to achieve something really magical with their voice. You got to keep in mind, that voiceover work is something that nobody sees. It's
Yeah.
always accompanying something else, usually video or a TV commercial, perhaps. Um, but nobody ever sees the voice actor or the announcer or the narrator. So you have to lot of oomph into your voice in order to make that work. And it's really fun to listen for the different types of personalities that really make it work because they're all over the place. You
Yeah.
type A characters, type Bs, introverts, extroverts, but they all know how to maximize their personality to get the most out of their voice.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, with people having different styles and different types of voices and stuff, what are the different types of voiceover jobs and careers that might be available, to anybody looking to break into this industry?
hmm Well, I would say that they would, if you want to classify them in two great areas, they would be commercial and non-commercial.
Mm.
And commercial to radio and television, and to radio and TV successors, uh, uh, venues like Pandora, for example, and YouTube and streaming television that people are turning to for their advertising nowadays.
Mm.
So that kind of work is usually called either voice acting, announcing, depending on the nature of the commercial work. So that's one very large category, although it's very, very hard to get that kind of work locally anymore. Doesn't have much for the professional anyway. As for the non-commercial work, that's really a huge field and very diverse. You could be, for example, explaining a video that a corporation has released on the process that they use, let's say, to extract oil from the ground. Or you could a voiceover for a video that explains your HR benefits if you work for a large corporation.
Oh, yeah.
Or you could do a video that welcomes you to a hospital for a particular type of care and what
Mhm.
to do once you get there. People do audio for a museum. When you're going from to exhibit and you
Yeah.
take around one of those little boxes, and they'll tell you what you're looking at and why. So there's lots of that sort of explanatory voiceover work that requires you to at least sound like you know what you're saying, at least sound like you are an expert in that subject.
Hmm.
There are also lots of different kinds of corporate work that involve narration. That the corporation wants to explain how they came to be, or what their reach is around the world. And it's more like a story. And narration is a great, great category of voiceover work because it allows you to tell a story. Ultimately, the storytelling type is actual once upon a time stuff.
Yeah.
And people still have an opportunity to do that. And the subject of audiobooks is probably the most sought after, the most discussed in our business these days. It's huge. And a lot of people are getting into it or trying to get into it. So there are these various, suppose, subcategories of how a person um, works in the industry, depending on their personality, the
Hmm.
kind of work that interests them, and the kind of work that they have developed to a state at which people want to listen to them, people believe what they're saying, and if action to take, they'll act on it because of the credibility of the person doing the voiceover.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there are people that are constantly looking to get into this industry. So, what would you
Right.
say are some necessary need to know facts, or prior skill sets that people should have before they get into voiceover acting?
Okay. I will preface that answer by saying a major category for young people these days is animation,
Mm.
which is part of voice acting, but it's specific to the field of animation. And that requires, I think, a totally different approach to how one gets in. And let me start because I imagine that some of the people who might be watching your video here are in that category because people are just fascinated, especially with anime.
Yes.
And I would say that a person who wants to get into animation, in particular anime, has to be not just good, but incredibly good. There is such a glut of individuals who are trying to get in that the competition is extreme. And so those people who really can offer something original, something different, something unique are the
Mhm.
ones who are going to have an edge, as long as whatever it is that's unique or different, unusual, is really, really good. That's how people get cast. Now, some people, is a background, have a particular character type, and that's what they do. Other are very versatile and they can do a lot of different types of character type. And so they market themselves in different ways. They say, well, I'm the beast under the bed, uh, or I can do a variety of girlfriends and people who are just like the girl next door. So you have to know who you are. You have to know how you're going to market yourself before you start even trying to get in the door. And then there are a whole set of rules that apply to uh, not only animation in general, but anime in particular, that specify how you have to actually approach the business. Animation, if you're not out in LA, you can forget a career in animation. You've got to be, that's where people are lining up, pounding on doors, getting feet in the door, finding people they can get to influence a decision. Very hard pavement pounding, a very difficult job of getting noticed
Yeah.
because everybody in Hollywood is saying, "Hey, look at me."
Uh-huh.
And so you're just another one of those people. Why should I look at you? You better know. You better know in advance. Now, to a certain extent, that is true of any voiceover category because it is a crowded field. And no matter what your specialty is, you're going to find that other people specialize in it as well.
Hmm.
And so it's all the more reason for you to know exactly what you offer the industry and what part of the industry you're going to be focused on. It's no different, I think, than any other career these days that you have to be in a niche. You can't
Hmm.
just say, hello, world, here I am, hire me. That that opportunity has come and gone. You know, that what we call an AB generalist, you know, a person who got out of college with a Bachelor of Arts degree,
Yeah.
they could name their own ticket for a while. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So you really have to know who you are. You have to know what you do. You have to know, be able to tell what makes that special.
Hmm.
And then you have to find the people that want that and market yourself to them. And of course, there are a large number of ways to market oneself these days, to get in front of people through the internet.
Yeah.
I would say that the internet has got to be your primary focus in developing your marketing plan. Now, of course, it helps to have an agent. Everybody needs to have an agent. Think if they can get one, but not you're not necessarily going to get an agent, and not necessarily because they don't think you're any good. They may think you're really good, but they already represent a number of people who are similar to what you offer.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're too similar to other people, and you know, sometimes you can't help that. I'm similar to a bunch of guys my age and 20 years younger. Uh, and if I don't know, if I were starting off right now, I think I would have a hard time knowing exactly how I was going to stand out, you know, because
Hmm.
there's so many choices. But in any case, I think that you have to know that some agents out there might want what you've got,
Hmm.
and you have to be able to promote yourself to them so that they know that, they realize that. And the best way to do that is to have a professionally produced voiceover demo that shows exactly why you are so special. There are lots of other things I could say, of course, but I found that there is a certain amount of information overload where a person starts, their eyes start glazing over. But if I've missed anything, go ahead and ask.
No, that was very good. I, you know, I've been reading a lot of things, and I actually came across somebody who said that in voiceover acting, unlike in, acting in general, it actually is beneficial to be kind of pigeonholed. Whereas, like, typically when you're acting, you don't want to be, but it's so funny because you kind of go against everything with acting because you do want to be pigeonholed. You do want to be that person who people go to for that particular sound or style or voice.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that there are certain actors who recognize that they have a particular niche in the market. Character actors, in particular, I think realize they're not going to ever get a lead,
Hmm.
but they are going to find, especially really great ones, that they will find a place in the industry where they will be cast again and again as a key character
Yeah.
that makes the drama. Let's say if it's a dramatic movie, but they need a little comic relief,
Mhm.
you know that somebody like Fran Drescher would be perfect
Yeah.
for something like that. And so you decide really how are you going to fit in. And I don't know that it's that much different for on screen or on stage actors, but since I don't know a whole lot about that
Mhm.
industry, I can say that in terms of voice acting and voiceover work, the more you know about how you fit in and what you can offer in a very specific way, I think the better your chances are. I think that one of the great fears that we have as voice talent is that uh, we have to tell people that we can do anything. A lot of people, when they come to me, they say, you know what, I don't care what I do. I just like to get into the business and get hired. But that's a good strategy, because I can do anything is not a sales point.
Yeah.
You have to be able to tell somebody what you can do specifically so that you can become known for it, and also you can prove it. And I will say this, that once someone has hired you to do that specific niche type assignment, you may find that they ask you if you can do something else.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Is anybody going to say no?
Most
You
people
know,
are just
once
gonna say no.
once you're inside, you say, "Oh yeah, I can do that. I can sound just like Jack Nicholson or whatever." So yeah, that's where it becomes an opportunity, and you seize every opportunity that you are given and make every opportunity that you can.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you yourself, you conduct, a variety of beginner and intro training courses and things like that. Why is that important for people to attend or to look into before they get started in the industry? And you mentioned a little bit of that, but,
Mhm.
um, aside from just finding your voice, why is it important to kind of learn the tools of the trade before going into it?
It's the same as if you're learning the skills of a plumber, let's say, or an electrician or whatever. You're not going to get hired by somebody if you have not had the appropriate background. Now, as a voiceover, there is no certificate. There is no federal or state licensing of voice talent. So perhaps there is, in some people's minds, a little less feeling that you need to have professional training, but you
Hmm.
do. And the reason for that is you may feel you've got a great deal of talent. It's going to be helpful for someone who is in the industry and who is skilled at coaching to tell you what they see in you
Hmm.
and what can be developed. Um, I believe that people naturally who come to me, every one of them, have some natural ability. Otherwise, I'm sure they wouldn't be here. They'd be someplace else,
Yeah.
They might be, learning how to do videos or something. But
Hmm.
people come to me because they feel about something and I believe them. The point is that then you have to figure out what it is and how to bring it out of them and how to see what the good stuff is.
Hmm.
In particular, we're very hard on ourselves. Have you noticed that?
Yes,
And
yes.
so we tend to when we listen to what we have just recorded, which I always do. That's part of the training is you listen to what you've just done. We want to point out all the mistakes we made. I blew that line and I mispronounced that word and I took a big gulpy breath and stop. I just want you to concentrate on what you liked about what you did. And in that sense, then you can progress at a very rapid rate to uncover what you knew all along. So
Hmm.
acknowledge what people know about themselves, but I want to make it real. I want to make it present to them so
Hmm.
that they can then address the market that needs what they've got and avoid a market that doesn't exist. And a lot of people come to me and say, I'd love to do impressions. I've been doing them since I was a kid. And I say, fine, go to a comedy workshop or something. Go to the local comedy club and try it out because there is almost no opportunity to do impressions and voiceover work. Well, how do you know that unless you have somebody to tell you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So my goal is to develop people who have the ability and just need some help from the outside to do it. That's the first part. Part is that they will not get anywhere without credentials. And the credentials in the voiceover business consist of a voiceover demo. In fact, a number of demos that cover a number of different types of voiceover work, but they have to start with something that shows off the breadth and range of their talent. That's what I help them with. And when they get through with my coaching, they come away with a voiceover demo. It shows off everything they do superbly well. And it sounds like they were hired to do it. It sounds professional. It sounds marketable. And it
Hmm.
also addresses a market that exists or a number of markets that exist.
Yeah.
Uh, you can't unless you know it. You got to have somebody to tell you what it is, how you fit in, and how we can develop that so that you are ready to talk to the market.
Yeah. And I know that you offer, beginning courses and like you said, you can do a demo with you and things like that. Are there any additional services that you yourself offer as a coach?
Well, I think that's the basis of it. Of course, some people come back for tune-ups. Some
Mm-hmm.
people come back because they feel, you know what, I feel like I'm moving to a different direction and I want to prepare myself for that direction. So I coach people with experience as well,
Wow.
who have realized something about their experience
Hmm.
that has put them in a slightly different or very great different direction, and they want to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've worked with um, uh, stage actors, for example, and
Oh, cool.
actors who've been in films who want to switch into voiceovers.
Hmm.
You can't consider them newbies, you know.
Yeah.
They're very experienced, but you know,
Yeah.
then you got to channel that talent they've got into something that, you know, here I am using my hands, and so it's all for actors on camera. It's all physical.
Hmm.
Well, you got to somehow translate that physicality into something where you only hear the voice.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat informal in scope because I don't say, okay, here's my training course for advanced people, because everybody is they're so unique that I don't have a course like that.
Yeah.
In fact, even for people who come to me without any training or background at all,
Hmm.
will find that they need to be treated individual, somebody who is unique, because that's the way they're going to be marketing themselves, as unique.
Yeah.
So they can expect to have, they're not going to get, for example, a book with all of my rules in it.
Yeah.
Although there's certainly a number of rules, you know, a number of things that I've discovered that you can apply. But there is no one way, no one technique that applies to everybody who wants
Hmm.
to get into this business.
It is very individualized. And I mean, you yourself have been doing it for years. So how do you continue to hone your own individual craft?
Well, it's certainly the critiques of my clients sometimes help. I always try to pay really close attention to the client and what the client has to say, and I also pay close attention to the scripts that I'm given.
Hmm.
Uh, I find that the more I focus on what I am actually looking at, the more I can apply my thinking to the script and to the project to get a better result. And I also listen to myself a lot, and I listen to other people, other talent a lot,
Hmm.
so that I can ask myself, what else can I do? How is there anything I can enhance that I'm doing now? Is there anything that maybe I should drop the way in which I approach an assignment? Uh, and it's not easy to do because I am one of those guys that does a great variety of things.
Yeah.
And so there is no one technique that I use
Yeah.
because sometimes I do straight announcing, sometimes I do what we call explainer videos, communicating information. Sometimes I narrate audiobooks,
Hmm.
both fiction and nonfiction. And sometimes, once in a while, I get to do character acting. Uh, and it's I'll tell you how I learned from character acting, and I wish there was more of it. I learned from the people that I'm partnered with. Um, for example, over the years, uh, if you're familiar with the Jimmy John's radio
Hmm.
commercials,
Yeah.
okay, I wrote and produced all of the Jimmy John's radio commercials since
Oh, wow.
1995. It was the longest running, uh, continuously running commercial campaign in America. And during that time, I played the role of the boss, Fast Ed's boss.
Okay.
And if you remember, you know, the shtick was that everybody walks fast.
Hmm.
Well, I first of all learned a lot from Ray Buck Tanika, who was the Fast Ed in all of the radio spots. And I also from the other actresses and actors that I hired to play off the boss or play off Fast Ed,
Hmm.
as I have for I've written and produced thousands of radio commercials, okay, and I've learned from every single person I've cast in every one of those commercials. They all had something special,
Hmm.
and I wondered each time I worked with somebody like that. I wondered, what am I learning from this person that I can incorporate and still, you know, be authentic, be who I am.
Yeah.
Uh, bec- the wonderful thing about everybody that I've worked with that at least was successful in the commercials that I produced is they really were themselves. They really authentically themselves. And maybe that's the best lesson I've learned, Megan, is to be yourself.
Yeah. I feel like that could definitely just, help with your performance because at that point, then you're not performing, you're you. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So with many people, stuck at home, either with the pandemic or, just out of a job, things like that, who might be looking into maybe starting a career in this or trying something on the side,
Mhm.
just for fun or either as, a secondary job. And with a lot of people having minimal budgets, do you have any tips or any suggestions on how they can maybe go about making a temporary demo that could help them get, quick small projects from either Fiverr or Upstart, smaller projects that they can then use to building funds to then get a professional demo?
Okay, well, that's a big mouthful question.
Yeah.
Um, First of
There's a
all,
lot.
let's keep in mind that you can't do this for fun.
Mm,
It's not like playing the guitar. No,
mhm.
nobody does voiceovers for fun. They all go into it with the at least the hope of making some money.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that people understand that. Not much of a hobby. But if they want to start off and they just feel like they want to give it a try, they've still got to realize one thing. You've got to have what they call a professional level home studio.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to pay any attention to you if you don't sound like you are working in an actual studio.
Yeah.
Now, I have a home studio at my house, my own studio at my office, and this that you're looking at here is my classroom studio. So I have 3 studios, and each one of them offers professional level audio quality.
Hmm.
So there are a variety of ways in which you can achieve that, but you have to have the right hardware, the right software, and the right treatment for your room
Yeah.
so that it sounds present, not echoey. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing. You've got to have a professional level home studio. And then, I can't stop a person from trying things out. You mentioned, and I mean, if they want to give it a try, they're certainly welcome to do that. And I know that there are some people who have had some success with that. And although Fiverr started off actually being a $5 per job
Yeah.
website, pure and simple, I understand that they have expanded their price range now
Hmm.
so that it might be a little bit more palatable. But the problem with untrained people who want to get into this business is, in my opinion, even though they're welcome to do it, and I sure can't stop them, they drag the price down for the professionals.
Yeah.
I've heard it again and again, and not just recently, over a period of time. Why should I hire you when I can get my sister, to do this for free or for $10 or for something like that? It's a constant struggle for voice talent to maintain the price that they're worth.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I resent people coming to the market and charging $10 or $20 or whatever for
Yeah.
something that really should cost a couple of $100, and the client should be willing to pay it.
Hmm.
That's personal opinion, but considering the cost that the money that people put into their own marketing plans and their own production, corporations spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in production. A few $100s for the voice talent just makes sense.
Yeah.
They should be paid for everything they do. So I guess that would be my major objection to a person going in.
Hmm.
I don't think that I don't mind a person, getting their feet wet, let's
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that they have to have the right attitude and, frankly, the right training to know how to go about it.
Well, and you've mentioned the professional demos are important to showcase your voice. How many demos should a person have? Is that very subject to kind of what their talent is, or should they have something where they separate corporate narration from literature narration and those
Very
type
good
of things?
question. Yeah, that's a really good question. Because some people think, well, I'll just send out this general wide range demo to everybody.
Hmm.
And why should I listen to that?
Yeah.
If I'm if a process engineer and I'm producing a video on how our plant produces plastic bottles, why do I want to hear somebody narrating Moby Dick?
Mm.
right? So the question is right spot on, Megan, that you have to recognize that there is a place to show off the range of your talent, and that's primarily either to a talent agent or to on your website, your voiceover website. Um, but you also have to have category demos to show a particular prospect exactly what you can do for them. It's like any other marketing plan. If it doesn't start by saying, "What can I do for you?" then it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
I have to know who I'm marketing to and what I can do for them. And that's where you get category demos.
Hmm.
So yeah, you may have a narration demo. You may have a corporate demo that talks in general terms about a corporation. You may have an informational demo that talks about the specific aspects of what we do
Hmm.
or do it, it gets into the nuts and bolts of things. Or I could have a character actor demo. I could do some voice acting work to show off that I characters, I can act.
Hmm.
And these are specific to a particular marketing possibility.
Well, when I was, getting ready for this, I don't know all that much about the world of voiceover acting, but I was listening to a few people's demos that are out there, and I heard sound effects and music and things like that.
Hmm.
As somebody who creates demos, you know, is the person who has the demo who's going to get the job, are they responsible for putting in those sound effects and all that, and making sure that it is up to par, or is that the responsibility of the client who hires them?
Oh, okay. Uh, I see where you're. The demo itself is the demo maker's responsibility to make it sound professional. And so in that case, you're going to use any bells or whistles you need to make it sound like a professionally produced recording.
Mhm.
Uh, when you approach a client and get hired to do a voiceover job, all you need to do is the voice part. You are not expected to do sound effects or music or any other type of production value because they have a producer who is going to take your audio track, voiceover
Mhm.
track, and plug it into whatever else they're doing. Now,
Yeah.
that said, what does the client expect from you?
Mhm.
A cleanly produced voice track. What that means is that it's been edited, completely edited so that there are no glitches, there are no false mistakes, uh, no drops at the ends of sentences, no funny breaths, all of the stuff that you would expect a professional engineer to have done, let's say 15 years ago. All we had to do then was to show up at the studio and blah, 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 and
Yeah.
leave. Now, everyone who is hired is responsible for not only recording what they do, but editing what they do so
Mhm.
that it is beautifully edited, it sounds flawless, and it's nicely mastered so that it can fit right into the production sequence.
So then what programs would you recommend to people looking into voiceover to use to edit their tracks that they're going to be doing? And are there any training classes or tutorials that you could suggest for them to learn the more technical side of that?
Right. Um, I recommend actually the most popular software in our business is freeware. Believe it or not, this is one of those few cases where what you get is more than what you paid for.
Yeah.
There is a freeware called Audacity. It's
Mhm.
spelled just like the regular word Audacity.
Mhm.
Um, and it is available through audacity.org, I think, or something close to that.
Mhm.
It is a free public service to the voiceover industry. Um, and it is extremely robust software. It will allow you to record well. It will allow you to edit easily.
Mhm.
And it will allow you to prepare a final track that is to the specifications of the client that hired you. Um, are tons of videos on YouTube for how to use Audacity.
Mhm.
And so it's very useful in any number of ways for people who are just starting off. You can fiddle around with it and discover, what, this is not that difficult to manage. And it's not even that difficult to do the basic editing without education on it.
Yeah.
So this is something, and the other thing about voiceover work is, unlike music, you don't have to know a lot about the software, all the plugins, for example, that most recording software has.
Hmm.
Audacity has a lot of plugins, but you probably will never use them, like
Yeah.
compression and equalization and so on. You may never need to do stuff like that, but you've got it if you need it.
Yeah.
Uh, that's the main thing, is if you download Audacity and play with it for a little bit, look at a couple of YouTube videos, you should be pretty competent in a short amount of time.
Mhm. Do you have a particular brand of, microphones and pop filters and things that you recommend for people to use?
Sure. Um, without getting too particular, I recommend for most people that there are two basic kinds of microphone. Basically, there's a dynamic microphone and a condenser microphone.
Hmm.
The condenser microphones are what professional studios use. All the studios that I used to go to for my voiceover work, they all had condenser microphones. I recommend a dynamic microphone for the ironic reason that it is less sensitive. When you're recording at home, and I don't know, where you are, what's going on outside your home,
Yeah.
if there's construction, if there's traffic, if there's a barking dog, if there's a lawnmower, whatever it is, we have to contend with these things at home.
Yeah.
And unless you want to soundproof your home, or at least the room that you're in,
Hmm.
soundproofing is enormously expensive, as opposed to sound management, which is just to manage the sound of your voice. Soundproofing is really expensive. And, my approach to soundproofing when I'm at home is, if a squirrel starts barking, I stop recording. Okay? And that's my management
Yeah.
secret. You stop.
Yeah.
And, some people find that there are certain parts of the day when uh, things are noisier, and other
Mhm.
parts where the things are quieter, and they learn to adapt to that sort of thing. So my general recommendation is dynamic microphone, and get a good one. The microphones that I use, I've got 3 of them, are made by Heil, and they cost about $350 each. Um, there are very good brands. Sony is probably one that I wouldn't recommend that much, but certainly companies like Sennheiser, for
Mhm.
example, might be good. But there are a number of brands. And actually, I recommend that people go to Guitar Center if they're up for it, because there are very capable, knowledgeable people in their audio room
Yeah.
that can help you choose the right microphone. And you can try out a number of them,
Yeah.
and just the one that you want and take the others back.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm sure people probably didn't think of that. So for, people that are watching this who may not be living in Los Angeles or may not be on the East Coast, over by New York,
Mm.
is there the possibility of them finding representation? And if so, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, there are a few talent agents that are based here in Houston, and I suggest that people look here first. Every talent agent has what they call a geographical region,
Hmm.
and when you sign a contract, you are signing a contract that says any work that within that region goes through your agent. But outside that region, I encourage some people to see if they can find local ad agencies in parts of the country.
Hmm.
Especially, this is especially true if they have a unique voice, if they have really something specially unique to offer, because other markets may not have anybody like that.
Yeah.
And so it's actually better to avoid New York, LA, and Chicago
Mm.
for any reason, because they have plenty of talent, thank you, and we don't need you guys from Houston. They think of Houston, Texas. In New York, they think of us as like Keokuk, Iowa.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Houston's
So
huge.
thank you, but no thank you. We've got plenty of talent here. Uh, so it is better to check first with your local talent agency and see if anybody locally can take you on. And then outside of that talent agent's geographical range, see what else may want to approach other agents in, let's say, New Orleans or Denver, Philadelphia,
Mhm.
uh, Baltimore, Atlanta. This is what I call a secondary market.
Mhm.
And it's a very strong secondary market. These are big, but not like New York, Chicago, and LA.
Right.
So that's a possibility.
And, do people necessarily need representation if they're, attempting to do this in the beginning? I mean, I know from what I've heard from acting, you can't even get representation unless you have credentials. So is
Mm.
that the same for voice acting?
To a great, it might be, it depends on, when they listen to somebody, uh, and they're always prepared to say, come back when you've got work,
Mm.
after you've got some experience. But listen, I've sent a lot of people to talent agents here in town,
Mhm.
and very often they will say, yeah, we want to sign you. You know,
Hmm.
never had a single job. Okay. But it's because they are special.
Yeah.
They've made themselves special.
Hmm.
And the more special they are, the better their chances are of just being signed without any experience.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you've got the people saying, this is the official business. The official presentation is, we won't sign you until you've got experience. But the fact is that sometimes they might.
In addition to training people and, voice acting yourself, I know that you mentioned you have a podcast.
I do.
What is it called and what is it about?
Well, as a matter of fact, it is called New Tricks for Old Dogs. And it is all about seniors. It's about people of retirement age who refuse to retire. People like me, for example, who, maybe our parents' age would have been long retired, maybe one foot in the grave. And people these days, I have found more and more people who really want to stay busy, to stay active, to explore, to discover new things about themselves and about other things. And this podcast is dedicated to those people.
That's awesome. So, what platform can people find that on if they go to look for your podcast? Are you on multiple platforms?
Yes, yes. Now that I'm trying to think of them, I won't be able to, but certainly iTunes.
Okay.
Uh,
So, when you're podcasting, do you use a different set of, skills or preparation than you would for when you're doing narration work? Or do you have some, skills that cross over between the two?
well, naturally, they do have a tendency to cross over. I have a partner. His name is Paul Mann, and he is an actor. He's been an actor for I'm going to say, without revealing his age, 40 years. Paul is a comedian.
Mhm.
And in fact, he's the one that started the comedy workshop here in Houston back in the 70s, the first comedy club in Texas, as far as I know.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got to know Paul back in the late 80s when I hired him to do some of my radio commercials, do the voices.
Oh, cool.
So we've been friends for a long, long time. And he decided that he wanted to do, this is his baby, to do this podcast.
Mhm.
And so he recruited me. And I find we can use our improv skills, we can use our uh, voice skills,
Yeah.
and we can use our personal skills to just make this podcast something people want to listen to. I can tell you the way it's divided up to give you a better idea,
Sure.
that we start off every podcast episode with what we call a ramble. And that is just Paul riffing on a subject. Like the subject might be standing in line, waiting for something.
Yeah.
To stand in line. How long do you want to wait? Uh, and just something,
Yeah.
anything that'll get us going, because then the rest is just whatever comes out of our mouths. And then it's my job to edit that down to about 3.5 minutes. Uh, that's followed by a bunch of news items,
Hmm.
maybe 4 or 5 items that Paul calls pod nuggets. And these news items are always something really quirky,
Yeah.
like a guy that had an electric fly swatter, and when the swat a fly, he didn't know there was a leak in his gas line, and it blew up his
Oh
house.
my God.
He was okay.
Thank goodness.
We don't know about the fly. Stuff like that. It's just, you won't believe this.
Yeah.
But Paul digs into a lot of news sources to find these little nuggets. And we end the episode. It's only 25 minutes. We end
Mhm.
the episode with about a 12-minute interview with somebody that we think is really doing a job of how the moon. And we've done 43 episodes so far.
Wow.
And each person that we interview, it's like a whole new world of possibility for people our age. They're doing something,
Yeah.
they're doing things that you wouldn't expect people our age doing. Our first episode, a bunch of guys in Salt Lake City decided to um, take their little group out of the coffee shop and go across the street to the city park and set up a canopy and offer their free advice.
Ah.
And they call themselves old coots giving free advice.
That's
You know,
awesome.
what a great way to kick off a podcast.
Yeah.
Just wonderful people, all with their own personalities and their own sensitivities and all of that, and all really up to something special.
As somebody who is located in Houston, what is one of your favorite things about Houston?
I think the quality of the arts here is unbelievably good. I would have to say that's number one. We have magnificent facilities for the arts. We have great performers, world-class performers in every field of the arts. You can talk about ballet or opera or symphonic. You can talk about musicians who play in clubs. I played in clubs for about 10 years, and I played with some musicians that were just jaw-dropping, and they stay here in Houston.
Yeah.
Some of the actors here, and I've met so many actors, are just phenomenally good. International capability. Stay in Houston.
No.
This is something special about the city. There must be a reason why they stay here, and it's not the heat.
Mhm.
So I would say that's number one. We also have organizations that maybe no other city has, even in Chicago. We have, for example, one group that I'm a member of is Musica, and Musica is it is actually a sort of a collective of individuals who support new music.
Mhm.
And so they are headed by a creative board that consists of 4 composers
Wow.
who are actually working composers with an international reputation. And we have a board of directors that supports them. And then we have a whole bunch of patrons who are all part of this collective
Mhm.
who participate in the presentation of new music. This is something that I don't think anybody else quite has something like this anywhere else.
Yeah, I didn't even know of it, so I'm glad that you mentioned it. That's
Yeah, you should check it out.
I will, for
Uh,
sure.
That's what I love most about Houston is all of the arts and the level of quality of the arts here.
Even if someone wasn't looking to make a career in voiceover, is there a benefit to taking any introductory courses or learning some voiceover skills that might help with other industries? Anything that they might be doing?
Boy, you come up with good questions. That's a really good question because the answer is yes. And I thought about this a lot, especially when a person like me or anybody who trained to do something involved in the arts,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of people out there who are really good who are not going to get anywhere with it professionally. It's just the way it is. Wonderful dancers who don't get to dance, wonderful musicians who don't get to play.
Yeah.
The reason that I continue, besides the fact that there is a possibility that you can make a career out of it, is that you do get to learn more about yourself by taking the training that I offer. You learn more about yourself than you thought you knew. And this knowledge about yourself is going to give you a confidence above and beyond anything that you already have. And that's not to say that you don't have confidence, okay? It's that you know more about yourself, and so you're more confident
Mm-hmm,
about presenting yourself in any situation. And of course, that could be teaching, but it could also be just in an office job,
yeah.
middle management, or anything. Certainly, it could benefit you as a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't think there's a person who wouldn't benefit. I remember, and I won't mention any names, but one of the people that I had in one of my workshops quite a long time ago, in my introductory remarks, I say, you will learn something new about yourself that you didn't know. And this guy raised his hand and he said, listen, I'm 68 years old. There isn't anything about myself that I don't know. Okay. Just so you know. I said, great. Glad to know it.
Yeah.
At the end of the workshop, which is an 8-week workshop that meets once a week for 2 hours, he said, you know what? I learned a lot more about myself. So, emphatic yes to your question. Yep.
I love that. Well, if people want to connect with you and learn more about the things that you offer, or maybe just want to connect and hear about your podcast, where can they reach you? Where can they find you on the internet?
Real quick, 2 websites. First, for voiceover.
Yeah.
The voiceover website, my personal website, is my name, www.jamesconlan.com. And Conlan is spelled Conlan, Lan. Okay, jamesconlan.com. And the website for the podcast is called olddogspodcast.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, James, so much for being here today. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, it may sound a little corny, but if you got a dream, go ahead and follow it. Find a way. Absolutely find a way to follow your dream. And you will find much more fulfillment in your life.
I love that. That's perfect to end on. Thank you again so much for being here. I will make sure to link all of his websites down below if you'd like to get in connection with him. And make sure you keep an eye out for my next video. Thanks again, James, and have a good day, everybody.
My
Bye.
pleasure. Bye.